All right, everybody. Welcome to a post-game live episode of Talking Ball Live with Pat Leonard, our first of the NFL 2025 season, starting with the Giants' victory over the Buffalo Bills at Highmark Stadium, 34-25. Giants take the win. And as we talk about this game and dive into Jaxson Dart's play, Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll's decision on the roster, who to play, who not, I want to start with my big bet of the day, brought to you by MyBookie, one of our sponsors here. MyBookie, the code there is my last name, Leonard, Leonard. You see it scrolling there on the bottom of the screen. MyBookie is the best place to bet on NFL football, on MLB, whatever it is, even if you love WWE, if you love wrestling, Sneaky, the best sports book to bet it, whatever it is that you're playing, even if you're just headed to the casino instead of the sports book, you're going to MyBookie, go to the link in my profiles and click on the or enter the code Leonard, my last name, Leonard, to get some welcome bonuses and get started today. But my big bet on the Giants is that playing the starters will benefit this Giants team. Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen deciding that they had to switch up the way that they approach these preseason openers and getting at least all of their healthy starters in for one drive when it comes to the offense, two drives when it comes to the defense. I think that can go a long way. You want to, of course, preserve health for the key players, but you need to play football to be ready to play football. That's what Joe Schoen said on the NBC broadcast. They recognize not only that they've started poorly in recent years, but also the urgency has never been higher. It has to be. Schoen knows it. Daboll knows it. So despite Brian Daboll kind of keeping it close to the vest going into the game, what the Giants intended to do with the lineup, I think they ended up settling on the right decision, which was whoever we can get in this game in a smart way to have people play football, feel the real speed of real games, and start acclimating in that sense. I think that was the right decision. And my big bet of the day is that even if it's a player here, player there, and it doesn't turn the Giants around, I think you're going to see this pay dividends for certain players down the road. My second point about what I loved about the Giants today, of course, you have to start with Jaxson Dart, the rookie quarterback. And let's face it, he nearly was intercepted on the play before he threw that touchdown pass. Ball gets batted into the air, and it just ends up hitting the ground before that Bills linebacker was able to secure a pick. But Dart wasn't phased. He wasn't rattled. He took a hit on the next play to make the throw, a perfect touch pass down the field to little Jordan Humphrey. And something I also loved seeing from Jaxson Dart, guys, I don't know about you, if you noticed it, whether it was there at the stadium or watching the broadcast, but did you notice how upset Jaxson Dart was at the end of the first half when the offense had to settle for a field goal and then the defense gave up that 50-plus yard pass down inside the 5 for that Bills field goal right before the half? You could see Dart dropping expletives on the sideline. Looked like he said to somebody at one point something was terrible. I think he was discussing how the Giants had finished the half. You know, he knew that it wasn't good enough. And you have to love that energy as well. Like, here's a young man who you would almost think, is he going to be nervous? How is he going to handle the jitters? How is he going to handle the pressure of, unquestionably, it had to be at least in the back of his mind, Shedeur Sanders going out and looking really good for the Cleveland Browns in his debut, starting that game Friday night for Cleveland, given what's going on in that quarterback room with injuries. And so, yeah, of course, you weren't going to judge which quarterback was better on one preseason game for each. But there's no doubt about it that if Sanders had a huge game Friday and Dart had a horrible game today, we'd be talking about it. And there's plenty of people in the Giants building who initially or still leading up to the draft wanted Shedeur Sanders. And so internally and around the Giants building, that's going to be something everybody's monitoring and watching. Hey, we were almost going to draft this guy. We pivoted. We drafted the other guy. How are they going to fare? I thought Dart, in that spotlight and in these circumstances, acquitted himself very well. It wasn't perfect, of course. There were some off-target throws, but of course done in as well by a couple of drops by Montreal Washington, who Washington, funny enough, broke 2 tackles for that. I think it was like a 28-yard gain or something, to get them into scoring territory for that little Jordan Humphrey touchdown. So he also made the biggest play on that drive. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and drop the boom impact on Jaxson Dart, the Giants rookie quarterback, because as much as the starters playing was interesting and a positive, and as much as there were other things that stood out to us that we'll talk about, the boom impact of the day, brought to you by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, obviously goes to the Giants' first round pick, the quarterback they traded up to get. Dart's final numbers in this game: Jaxson Dart, 12 of 19, 154, touchdown pass to little Jordan Humphrey, as well as 24 yards rushing. So brought to you by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink. Of course, Boom Chaga, if you are a subscriber or a regular watcher or listener to Talking Ball Live with Pat Leonard, you know Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink is a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants and heart-healthy compounds. I put it in my coffee every morning. I'm a big coffee drinker. If you're not, they make cold teas now. You can buy the cold teas, and that's a great thing, especially in these hot summer months. Sweet Dreams, Rise and Shine, and Midday Boost. Use the code TalkingBall25. You see it down there scrolling across on our ticker. TalkingBall25 at boomchaga.com. You use that on the subscribe and save option, you'll get 25% off your first order on subscribe and save. You can cancel it out, no problem. But we're grateful to all of our sponsors, MyBookie, Boom Chaga, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, which we'll talk about more in a little bit, as well as Sal Loretta for Men, luxury menswear, and tailoring. But certainly Jaxson Dart leading the way with the boom impact of the day, and Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen understanding, even though there were a lot of starters who had to sit due to injury or managing their bodies, definitely stood out that they changed course on their strategy for preparing their team. And with that, I want to welcome everybody in. I see you all being patient, dropping questions in the chat. Really appreciate you all being here. As you know, or as you may not, if you're new to the chat, we go live post-game after every Giants game, home and away, sometimes from the press box, usually from the press box. Didn't make the trip this time to Buffalo, but still as plugged in as ever, watching the full game, taking notes, talking to sources throughout, sending texts and calling people and finding out exactly what it is to know about the Giants team that you just watched here against the Buffalo Bills. Again, 34-25 Giants victory, locked up by Deontay Johnson, the reserve linebacker, making a nice tackle on 4th and goal against Frank Gore Jr. and holding him up short of the goal line. As Patrick Evans tells us right up the top of the chat, he says, hit that sub and like button. Go Jaxson Dart. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You'll get notifications when we go live or we launch a new podcast, like our dual pods about NFC East pre-scouts this week with JP Finley on the Commanders and Calvin Watkins on the Dallas Cowboys. Please hit the like button while we are live as well. Those likes while we are live, that algorithm tells those Giants and NFL fans out there who don't know what we're doing here yet to come join our community, to ask a question, to participate, and find the best chat and the insider coverage of the Giants that you have going right after these games, coming out of here with information and analysis, and also letting you guys vent, analyze, criticize, praise, whatever it is you want about the team that you want to talk about. I end up learning as much from you all usually as you do from me. And the final thing before we get into more questions, if you have a comment or question that you want addressed immediately or first, or you can't wait, or you just want to support our channel, please purchase a super chat or super sticker. If you do that and ask a question with it, you will be elevated to the top of the queue, and I will answer or discuss your comment or question first, or you'll be right up next in the queue in the line. So thank you so much for supporting us, whether it's super chats, whether it's supporting our sponsors, Hooks, MyBookie, or Boom Chaga, or whether it's just being here, watching, and listening. Thank you so much for being here. I am the New York Daily News NFL columnist and Giants beat writer. This is my 10th straight season covering this league and this team. And, of course, no shortage of things to talk about after the Giants' preseason opening victory against the Bills. Patrick says, I think we have our quarterback of the future, a way better outing than Daniel Jones. You know, I would say this. I mean, definitely the Giants need improved quarterback play. I don't love the Daniel slander. Like I heard Daboll say, at halftime, Howard Cross said that when they asked about the offensive line playing better, by the way, the Giants did not allow a sack in this game. So obviously impressive there. But Dable said that it's helped by the quarterback play. You know, you can praise people without taking veiled shots at people who've come before you, but certainly this isn't a feelings game either. So fair comment by you, but I just wanted to point that out. I heard Dable say that at halftime, according to Howard Cross on the NBC broadcast. And, you know, yeah, it's we get it, but not all the losing was on the former quarterback. Like it's time to move on and win some games. Hunter, what's up, Hunter? He says Turbo Miller looks sharp. Dart had some misses, but made all the great decisions. Abdul Carter shot out of a cannon like 4 times. Love the 3 of them. I get it's preseason, but this seemed like the most competent quarterback play I've seen from a Brian Daboll team. I think definitely the ball was coming out very quickly. That's clearly an emphasis. That's a way to protect your O-line. Joe Shane mentioned that as well when he talked to Bob Papa and Carl Banks on the broadcast. Now, one thing you see when that happens, Hunter, is like on Russ's drive, okay? The Russ's one drive with the first team offense, I think he was, 6 of 7, I believe. You know, on the one hand, you get a lot of completions, you matriculate and move the ball down the field. On the other hand, it's steady. And just like with Daniel Jones, you have those steady drives where you're moving the ball down, but it's like everything has to be perfect because you don't make that big play. You're not holding the ball to push it down the field. And so in the end, 2 penalties end up doing them in. They kick a field goal. So, you know, I think there was a conscious effort to screen the Bills defense to death, to get the ball out quickly, to get easy completions, especially early on. You want quarterbacks just to get a feel for that. You're not trying to take risks to put people in harm's way. You're trying to, as Daboll said before the game, a lot of it is like, especially with a rookie like Dart, it's procedural. You're trying to emphasize, okay, how are we getting in and out of the huddle? Are we getting the right play call in? Are we getting it in on time? Are we snapping the ball? Are we making our reads? Are we not committing too many penalties? You know, pre-snap penalties, especially. Like, again, that's one concern coming out of this, not surprisingly based on how they practice, but 10 penalties from the Giants today, including several by the starters early on. So, you know, but as far as what you're talking about at the quarterbacks, I think getting it out quickly and emphasis is a good way to protect your line. And of course, without Neighbors, Hyatt, Slayton in the game, less explosive weapons, available to you as quarterbacks to push the ball down the field. But you're going to want, yes, that's good, but you're going to want and need those plays where the quarterback holds the ball, has to hold the ball to make the play. Dart, interestingly enough, did have a couple plays where he held the ball, but still used his mobility and his legs to make a play, which was good to see. You mentioned Turbo Miller, Hunter. I'm glad you mentioned that. Turbo Dante Miller led the team today with 102 yards from scrimmage, 7 catches on 7 targets for 80 yards, as well as 10 carries for 22 yards. So shout out to Turbo Dante Miller. Montreal Washington, 3 catches on 6 targets for 60 yards. And then little Jordan Humphrey, Jonathan Ward, and Gunnar Olszewski all with touchdown catches. Thomas Fedone, the rookie tight end, with a 2-point conversion grab. Abdul Carter, you mentioned, Hunter. Yes, you saw a glimpse of what we see every day at practice there. Like, he didn't end up with a sack, and I don't even think he got a QB hit. I'll have to double check that. But did you see how quickly he was in the backfield and how quickly he was beating guys? You know, Montreal or Mitchell Trubisky was getting the ball out quickly. But if he didn't, he was going to be taking some big shots from the Giants' number 3 overall pick. Feels like a different kind of vibe from the team so far. I feel like the leaders on the team are stepping up, says Patrick. Hey, good start. Good start. Candyman says, nice little start. Interesting comment, I think, by Shane saying the quarterback helped the O-line perform better. I think that's valid. Yeah, no doubt about it. But that's also the mantra from the organization is going to be, it was all Daniel, and now that we have different quarterbacks, watch how it goes. I would say that the Russell Wilson first drive, which included a Tyrone Tracy fumble, fortunately, just after his knee touched the ground, I would say that drive looked a lot like a lot of Daniel Jones's drives, which was moving the ball down the field, but no explosive plays, and then having to settle a field goal with some imperfections and mistakes along the way. Of course, they were missing a lot of weapons, Scatterboot included. But, you know, that's going to be what the Giants are hanging their hat on this year, is that better quarterback play is going to make everything look better around these QBs and on this team. So that's something interesting to see. We have a super chat dropped in here. Looks like Hunter Keller. Let me get to that. All right. It looks like we're getting spammed by somebody here. Wow. That's okay. 1 second. Yeah, man, that's spamming's tough. Oof. All right. Let's see. Hunter Keller. What's up, Hunter? He says, speaking of Hyatt, why did he not play? He needs every rep possible. Well, he had tweaked something in his leg early on, both in the late spring and early summer. He's been back at practice recently, but this is clearly so every guy who didn't play due to injury, they're not all related to like, oh, they couldn't practice tomorrow. It's also about management. So Malik Neighbors, if this were the regular season, he could have played today. It's not like he was unable to play due to his injury, but the team is being cautious. Hyatt's the same way. Whether it was a hamstring or a calf, something with with a tendon and a muscle in his leg there that had been bothering him that kept him out. I think it was 3 or 4 practices there early in camp. So the Giants are trying to be cautious there. But Hunter, to your point, as far as the list of guys who did not play, that raised my eyebrows. I'll admit, when Jalen Hyatt was listed as one of the guys who was not going to play, because you just hit the nail right on the head. He needs to. Just so everybody knows, guys who did not play today, either due to management or injury: Andrew Thomas, Dexter Lawrence, Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, Jalen Hyatt, Bo Collins, Cam Scattaboo, Evan Neal, Art Green, Trey Hawkins, Corey Black, Chauncey Golston, and Demetrius Flanagan-Foles. I don't think I missed anybody there. Great point by you, Hunter, and thank you so much for setting the example and supporting the chat. Really appreciate you as I try to get all these bots out of here, man. This is crazy. I'm sure you guys can see if you are live right now with me in the chat. There are plenty of bots dropping in here, man. That is nuts. All right. So, Hunter, thank you for the super chat. Let's get to our next comment here. Oh, we have another super chat in the chat. All right. Appreciate this. All right. Let's see. Let's get down here past all the bots. Couple more rolling in as I try to frantically eliminate all of these bots in the queue. Oof. Flooding us here. All right. Jim says Daboll shot at Daniel Jones reflects back on him and Shane. I agree. Yeah, like both things can be true, Jim. I think it can be true that improved quarterback play is going to help everything around it. I think pointing it out at halftime of the first preseason game that, yeah, finally we have better quarterback play and that's why the line looks better. Like easy, Let's see. Patrick says, good to see you, Pat. Took some time off from football for a few months, but back to the best post-game live show on the net. And I meant no disrespect to the Daniel Jones comment. Oh, yeah. No, I totally, Patrick. No, I was just, you bringing that up reminded me, and that one of the talking points I wanted to bring up in here was about the obvious kind of allusion to Daniel that we saw on the broadcast there come from Daboll's way and from Shane's way. Because like I said, being somebody who's reporting on this team every day and on this league, like that's very much a talking point of the Giants is like, do you see how everybody looks better now that we have better quarterback play, right? You heard Daboll say that after a game last year when Drew Lock played well and erupted against the Colts. Daboll made the comment of, yeah, like that's what it looks like with good quarterback play. And so it can be true, but it can also be a bad look at the same time. And so that's just always something to keep in mind. All right. Let's see. Thank you so much, Patrick, for that super chat too. Really, really appreciate you. Want to get to something interesting that Barb hits on immediately. I appreciate that, Barb. She says, definitely got to trade Jameis. And I like that Barb says this because it brings up something that was extremely noticeable to me late in the broadcast. I don't know if it was noticeable to you guys, if you were clocked in as much on the backups at the end as I was, because, listen, it's my job to be there. I'm not expecting you all in the fourth quarter to be watching as closely as you were in the first, especially if you're out back grilling using those hooks, rubs, and spices, on your tailgate and on the meat back there. I know you are. But this brings us to our hook of the day. That is the topic that is arguably the most intriguing coming out of this game, the most unexpectedly intriguing. Not that I didn't expect this to be a talking point, because this was certainly one of the stories I was going to be writing on Sunday or Monday coming out of this game, is where we go from here in the QB room. But the hook of the day, brought to you by Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, is which quarterback is going to be traded, Jameis or Tommy DeVito. Bob Papa, the Giants play-by-play man, he and Carl Banks running the broadcast today on NBC4 New York. Play-by-play man Bob Papa twice broached the idea of the Giants creating a market to trade one of their quarterbacks during this broadcast. He first brought it up with DeVito in the game. Here's what he said. It's going to be interesting because Tommy DeVito won a primetime game on national TV and has some wins. He's not getting cut and being put on the practice squad. Because if you look at it, there's about 5 or 6 teams in the NFL that have really bad backup quarterback situations, which means could there be a trade with teams that have a deep quarterback room? Papa and Banks later returned to the idea that one of the Giants' QBs could be trade bait. Papa said, you can't keep 4 quarterbacks in today's NFL. It'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. Banks added, none of them will be unemployed. So whether it was them trying to create a market for DeVito or emphasizing that someone is going to be dealt and that it could end up being either DeVito or Jameis, clear messaging there coming out of the Giants building and some people with Giants connections on the broadcast that this is something the Giants as an organization are interested in and obviously hoping for, because they see what I see, what we all see, what we know, which is it would make no sense for them to have these 4 quarterbacks in the rotation in the regular season. It doesn't even make sense now, right? So how about Dart, by the way, getting on the field as the second QB, as we've seen all summer, with Jameis, despite the fact that Jameis is listed as the number 2 quarterback on the unofficial depth chart behind Russell Wilson. So a flip-flop there, an optics move by the Giants as well, unsurprisingly there. But this hook of the day, brought to you by Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. This is the smoke and sweetness. It's their award-winning flavor, one of their award-winning flavors, but this is the staple. This is the main guy, my favorite flavor so far. Still haven't tried them all, but I'm on my way to doing so. But Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, I know Jared is in the chat. Jared is a diehard Giants fan from Houston originally, and he brings a Texas flavor to your Giants tailgate and home gate. As you see here he is, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, barbecue seasoning. He says, hey, let's go, Pat and chat and G-Men with that dub. I know it's preseason, but it still feels good to get a win. Yes, it does, Jared. So you guys need to follow, first of all, at Hooks Rub on Instagram. The link is hooksrub.com/talkingball. That's where you're going to use your Talking Ball code and get 15% off, a 15% discount on your order there. Has great swag as well on Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. I'm wearing it again today. My brisket shirt. I love it. My favorite summer shirt of 2025. But bottom line, guys, whether you're home gating, whether you're hosting a Giants tailgate or crew in the parking lot, if you're like Joey B and you were up there in Buffalo and Orchard Park, New York for the game in person, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices gives your grill serious flavor with their bold seasoning lineup. All natural, no junk, big Texas barbecue flavor to keep fans coming back for seconds. Think smoked wings, cheesy nachos, flat top burgers, ribs, or brisket sandwiches, all dusted with Hooks' signature rubs. Join the flavor family. Follow at TikTok, Instagram, YouTube at Hooks Rub. HooksRub.com is the website. Subscribe on YouTube. Activate your pregame playlist and join the flavor fam at Hooks Rub. Hooks Rubs and Spices. We smoke meat. Jared, you're the man. Thank you for supporting us here. And thank you for being such a great part of this chat, of this community. And we're thrilled to support you and push a great product here and somebody who cares just as deeply about the Giants as anyone else in this chat. Ken says, no way you trade Jameis. That makes no sense at all. Joe says Dart has moved from number 3 to 1 in the quarterback room in his mind. Cut, check, down Wilson. He threw mostly 1 or 2 yard passes. Dart could run, made all the throws. Barb disagrees, though. Ken says quarterbacks don't grow on trees. The only quarterback you let go is DeVito. Joe says you do not want any more of the Giants DBs from the end of the second quarter on the field. They couldn't cover anyone. Interesting to hear Joe Schoen say what I've told you guys already from the start reporting, but interesting to hear the GM say it. He was talking about the corner room and the cornerbacks, and he mentioned that there's Paulson Adebo, Drew Phillips, and then he mentioned the competition between Deonte Banks and Cordell Flott, and he mentioned specifically Art Green being the 5th cornerback, both as a corner and as a key gunner on special teams. So that was something that was valuable to hear out of the GM's mouth. Now, Green hasn't practiced in, I think, the last 2 practices has been out, maybe 3, and did not play in this game. He did cite Trey Hawkins as well, but in my mind, a healthy Green is ahead of Trey Hawkins on this roster, and it wouldn't be particularly close. We'll see where that goes. Hawkins, obviously a draft pick. But that's something to keep in mind when you're talking about who's going to make the team, who's making the roster, what does it look like when all is said and done. By the way, and I see another super chat in the queue, it's the one and only D Kit who is back. So we're going to get to that very quickly. Before I get to that, D Kit, want to mention while we're talking about the corners, Deonte Banks playing that full first half, very interesting because listen, he made a tackle right off the bat on special teams. I think on kick coverage, might've been punt coverage. I think it was kick coverage. So he makes a kickoff tackle, I believe, right off the bat and, made some good plays, but 2 things that stood out to me. 3, I should say. 1, Deonte Banks, I thought played physically and made a lot of good plays and looked like he was in the game, involved. He's been competing, working hard. Secondly, I noticed that when he gave up, the first time he gave up a completion where it was clear he was like a step or 2 behind, it was for a first down. He did seem to put his head down a little bit and look a bit discouraged. And Carl Banks pointed it out on the broadcast and said, you don't like seeing this body language coming off of last year. And obviously now this is me talking. Effort was an issue at times last year. So it was interesting to see that called out right away. Definitely bothers me at times when it feels like they're putting all of the onus of the defensive struggles on Banks because it's like there's so many other guys that were related to that. But, when they took the Giants defensive starters out after 2 drives, Banks stayed in and played the entire first half with all of the backups. And Joe Schoen was asked about that. And here's what Joe Schoen said. He said he's in a battle with Flott for that second corner spot. By the way, Cordell Flott really hasn't played or practiced in a while. And they're still calling it a battle. So it was important to get out here and let him play, Schoen said. He played the first half, did a good job. And then Schoen mentioned about the one down the sideline that was a near deep catch on Banks. He said he had that one. I wish we could locate the ball, but he was able to push the guy out of bounds and get us off the field. So that's Schoen basically pointing out the one bad play Banks made in the game that really stood out. And of course, it did result in an incompletion. The GM's not wrong, though, that play showed one of the things that is a constant issue with Deonte Banks, even when he has good coverage and he's close, is he struggles to get his head turned around to the ball. And you saw on that play, he was looking for it. He couldn't find it. And then Christian Wilkerson makes that awesome one-handed grab from Mitchell Trubisky. Now, it was ruled incomplete because Banks was physically winning at the point, and Wilkerson wasn't able to get his second foot down in bounds. But, agreeing with Shane here, like that is one of the things that every time they're watching Banks on the field, yes, you're watching his attitude and his reaction to, positives and negatives, but you're also, yes, you're hearing those, positives and negatives, but you're also looking at his sustainability on the field. You don't want any of these guys battling for positions. You don't want them having their worst be like a drive killing play, whether it's giving up a huge completion when Banks can't find the ball, whether it's when Evan Neal is on the field, like completely whiffing on a blocker and it results in a huge hit on the quarterback or a fumble, and that kind of stuff. So those are the things you're looking for. I did think, though, that Banks, outside of those two plays, I thought he did enough in this game to not be talked about like he did nothing, if that makes sense. But still interesting, always instructive to hear the general manager. D-Kit, my man. D-Kit, what's good? He says, can't let the Giants skate when it comes to the Jones debacle, but I can't understate how Jones' limitations hindered other players' development. Regardless, I'm not looking for moral victories this year. Yeah, no, listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that Daniel Jones didn't have shortcomings that didn't affect the team. Of course he did, but I feel like, like I said, today's first drive, great example of you change the quarterback, you still have 2 penalties, you still had to matriculate the ball down the field with short passes, and you really couldn't push the ball down the field that much. So I saw a lot of the same things there. Now, again, huge asterisk on that because no Andrew Thomas, no Malik Neighbors, no Darius Slayton, right? No Jalen Hyatt, no Bo Collins. So not apples to apples there, but I'm just saying, like, let's keep watching that. Let's keep watching. Okay, if they aren't dumping it off for 3 to 4 yards all the time, is the offensive line holding up in that respect? But, listen, no sacks allowed is no sacks allowed. Credit to the Giants today and how they operated. And yes, agreed. No moral victories, man. I don't know how to stop these spamming accounts on here, but I'm going to have to figure that one out. Novice, what's up? Hey, D-Kit, thanks so much for the support, man. Let's see. Yeah, but Giants sending bots my way. Novice of Things. What's up, Novice? Says, what's up, Pat? Liked what I saw from Dart, especially Carter, who worked Dawkins in limited reps. Looking forward to the Wednesday practice, which is the one at home against the Jets. Yeah, very much looking forward to that. Like I said, I'm encouraged just that all the healthy or able starters got some time. I think, there is just no way to make sure guys are ready to step on the field in the first game of the regular season and play at game speed if they haven't done it yet. Love that early tackle or pass breakup and hit by Micah McFadden, man. A tone-setting play there by the linebacker right off the bat was great to see. Was concerned about that those missed tackles by Drew Phillips and Dane Belton on the 3rd down catch and run there. But, of course, the defense overall, the starters getting the Bills offense without Josh Allen and James Cook, of course, off the field. So that was good to see. Let's see. Thank you so much for those super chats, fellas. Really, really appreciate you. Okay. Yes, Carter did play 6 snaps, as Ken pointed out. Carter looked explosive. He just didn't end up finishing those plays, right? Like I said, Trubisky was pretty good about getting the ball out, but absolutely, he was, he was explosive. Like the cut-ups of Abdul Carter's game, despite whatever the stat sheet says, people are gonna drop their jaws when they see some of Carter's moves in this game because he was in the backfield quickly. Patrick, again, checking in with a super chat. Thank you so much. Patrick says, hey, Pat, I heard you mention we didn't give up a single sack today against a really good D-line, but what were your thoughts on the O-line and on Evan Neal? Well, Evan Neal is hurt. Patrick did not play in this game. He's banged up. He didn't practice the other day. He was on the side, so that's concerning, obviously. Like, this is the one thing. It's frustrating to see that the Giants' competitions, which are supposed to be the second starting corner spot and the starting guard spot, right, at right guard, those are supposed to be competitions, right, between Greg Van Roten and Evan Neal and between Deonte Banks and Cordell Flott. And unfortunately, at the moment, you have Neal on the side banged up, and you have Cordell Flott on the side banged up. So right now, those aren't competitions at all. I will say that even though I know the Giants like Jake Kubas as as far as like his approach to the game and how he plays, he did give up a few, at least 2, maybe 3 pressures today, and has had some some big breakdowns in pass pro. So I really, Stinny's in that mix as well. But I do think in the end, it just seems like the Van Roten Banks position battles are working themselves out. I mean, it's interesting to see that Banks played the full half though, because it's like on the one hand, you're making him earn it. But on the other hand, are you instilling confidence in that player by doing that? Interesting. All right. Hooks, Rubs, and Spices checks in with an exciting idea. Oh, Patrick, by the way, everybody stay in here. If you're here, stay, because I think we may have a giveaway coming. So Patrick Evans checks in with this super chat, and he also said, he asked about Evan Neal. He also asked what I thought about the offensive line. Listen, no sacks allowed is no sacks allowed. That is obviously encouraging. I think you look at the running backs and the running game itself. Turbo Miller, 2.2 yards per carry. Tyrone Tracy, 3.0 yards per carry. Ward, 1.7 yards per carry. Singletary, 1.5 yards per carry. The running game was not strong. Obviously, the Giants threw the ball a lot in this game. The quarterback scampered around a little bit. Dart, 24 yards rushing. Winston with 12. DeVito with 1. I think in the running game, obviously, you want to see a lot better. I believe in the pass pro game, I was encouraged. I was especially encouraged, I have to say, with Marcus Bowe, the 5th round tackle out of Purdue. He played both the right and left sides. And I will agree with what Joe Shane said on the third quarter broadcast. He said, it felt like it had been really quiet over there on that side when Bowe was playing a lot of right tackle earlier before shifting and playing a little left. And listen, he's had issues being overpowered strength-wise in practice, and definitely is a guy who's a late rounder. So you want guys like that to develop and, not be over, not putting like unfair expectations on somebody. But, at the same time, listen, to give a quick review of the rookie there, I thought Marcus Bowe seemed like he was holding up and he was buying enough time for passes to come out on time and for quarterbacks not to be looking over their shoulder. That would be an enormous development if that rookie could help you with tackle depth where you didn't feel like the line was going to collapse if, not only Thomas being out right now, but like, let's say Hudson isn't working out or he gets banged up or whatever, like to have that 4th tackle that you can trust in some way. I mean, can't value that enough. All right. So Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, Jared, like I said, diehard Giants fan. This is his company, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. He says, Pat, in honor of the G-Men's game day, my dad's 74th heavenly birthday, and just to be a good man, let's do a giveaway on this stream. You pick the trivia to win a rub. So it looks like Jared from Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, he is offering up a smoking sweetness bottle for the winner of our trivia question. So stick around for a few minutes as we talk more. I'm going to dive into some Giants trivia and try to come up with something tough, because I know there's been times I come up with one, and everybody says that was too easy. But basically, just so you know, our trivia always works this way. I'm going to ask the trivia question, and once I ask it, the first person in the queue to answer the question correctly wins the bottle of Smoking Sweetness from Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. So it's just going to be in order of what it shows up in on the queue. So there's no favoritism. It's not like the first one I see. It's whichever one shows up first. Okay. Let's see. Who do we got next? So stick around. That trivia is coming in a minute or two here. Joey B Comedy checks in from Orchard Park. Joey B was at the game in person. So Joe, would love to hear what you have to say as well. He says, what's up, Pat? It was a long walk to the stadium, but a happy one on the way back. Even won some of my bookie bets. Hopefully you're talking about on my bookie with that code Leonard, Leonard, Joey B. Because if you're cashing in on my bookie, we're all winning here, man. Let's go. He says he's hearing Evan Neal is going to be traded to the Chargers. Is there any truth to that? Let's get food Saturday before the game against the Jets. He's calling for. All right. That's a good idea. We'll see. Get back to you on that, Joey B. Haven't planned out my Saturday yet. Still inundated with Giants Bills. Where are you hearing Neil to the Chargers, Joe? No one has told me that. I guess you're implying then that they would be keeping him on the side. Like you're implying that they're keeping him on the side, almost like a hockey team pulls a guy out of a lineup because they have him on the block. Is that what you're saying? No, I have not heard that at the moment. All right, let's see. Okay. All right. All right, let's get back into the queue. Stick around though. My trivia is coming up. I'm just trying to find a trivia question that is worthy of Jared's smoke and sweetness giveaway. But Joey B, to your question about Neil, at this point, I don't think like even his play, it wasn't just the injury. His performance hasn't warranted that being a competition at guard with Greg Van Roten either. Plus the injury issues and, can you rely upon that player? So if you could get anything in a trade for Evan Neal, I think it would be a good idea at this point. So don't disagree. Let's see. Jim says, Pat, what are your thoughts on Shedeur Sanders' debut versus Jaxson Dart's debut? I think they both look pretty calm and composed, and it didn't look too big for either of them. Obviously, we all know that preseason is not the regular season. And we also know that we're not judging either one as a success or failure based on one preseason game in limited action, no doubt about it. But I think that both franchises have to be encouraged. I think Sanders' performance and his ability to get in the end zone twice certainly raised eyebrows about the entire league, including the Giants, passing on him so far and to the 5th round where the Browns take him. So definitely, did he look, Shedeur, like a 5th round quarterback or a guy that you wouldn't want in your quarterback room in that game? I mean, certainly not, right? But Jaxson Dart, of course, this is something that, comparing Dart to Shedeur, but just evaluating Dart as well. Like, I just like Dart as a gamer, man. He cares. He's emotional. He's invested. And I think, listen, if that ball that got tipped was picked off, we could be having a different conversation right now. So sometimes it's as narrow, like the analysis and the plus minus of a performance can be as narrow as hanging on like a thin line, just like a play like that. So, fortunate, but also the bounce back, the resolve, the ability for Dart to not only kind of push back and make a play, but also like push the ball downfield. The two plays that set that up, were one was a screen pass to Dante Miller, and the other was a short catch and run to Montrell Washington, where Washington made 2 nice moves to break tackles and get out into open space. So as much as they had moved the ball down the field on that drive and Dart had completed those throws and made good throws, you want to see those downfield shots, right? You want to see, hey, are we stretching the field better than we have in the past? Does he mind taking chances down the field? That kind of thing, right? And so that's all gravy and positive. Let's see. All right. Here's our hooks, rubs, and spices trivia question of the day. Okay. Now, sometimes our trivia questions are things that you can look up. Sometimes they're hard to find, but whoever gets this is going to be someone who watched the full game and knows their stuff. 2 Giants defensive players had sacks today. Who are they? That's your trivia question. 2 Giants players today had sacks. Who are they? First person to put the names in the chat wins the giveaway. Hooks, Rubs, and Spices will be giving away a Smokin' Sweetness rub. Be sent to you directly as a diehard Giants fan who paid attention the entire game. I'm actually really disappointed right now that nobody answered that immediately, because that means that a lot of you didn't hang through the 4th. Oh, man, a lot of you didn't hang through the fourth. There he is. Nick Man C gets it correctly. He's the first one in. Nick Man with DJ Davidson and Jordan Riley. Great job, Nick. DJ Davidson and Jordan Riley, an unlikely duo, the answer to that question. But they were the two Giants defensive linemen with sacks in this game of Bills quarterbacks. Duncan, Joey B, and everybody else. Ezeki, thank you for playing. Ezeki was in just after Nick Man, but Nick Man C, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. Jared, thank you so much for the giveaway. Remember, guys, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. Jared is a diehard Giants fan. He's one of us. It's going to be Houston, Texas flavor coming out with the Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. Big barbecue, Texas flavor. No junk, all natural, bold seasoning lineup. So use the code TalkinBall at hooksrub.com for 15% off your order. Like I said, the gear is just as good as the flavors, and the flavors are spectacular. Congratulations, Nick Man, winning that Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. Davidson was a surprising one. There's no doubt about it. All right, we're rolling here on Talking Ball live with Pat Leonard. Postgame, Giants beat the Bills 34-25, and a lot of encouraging things to talk about coming out of this game. All right, back into the queue. Let's see. Yeah, Immortal points out what I was just saying. I like how Dart played, took a shot and threw a laser, no doubt, and dropped it with nice touch in there too. Peterstown says, hey, Pat, Kafka called a good game today. I'm worried Dable's huge ego won't allow that to continue. He'll look for anything to take play calling away from Kafka. He did call a good game. Kafka did. I mean, he screened the Bills to death. Yeah, it was even interesting. You hear Carl Banks talking about Kafka as the play caller and then saying he's doing a good job. And he's like, in collaboration with Dable. And then he says, but it is Kafka's offense. It was like, wait a minute. What do you mean in collaboration with Dable? Like, is he getting credit when it goes well and he's not the play caller when it's not? Like, let's just let Mike call the plays and give him credit when it's good and, you know, criticize and nitpick when it needs to be better. Like, it's Mike Kafka calling the plays. But Peterstown, you're absolutely right. Like, you can't ignore the fact that that's the history and that's the precedent is him looking over his shoulder. Nick Man C, you won that giveaway. Please direct message me on Instagram. So my Instagram is PL on NFL. It's the same handle as here on YouTube. Please direct message me, Nick Man C, your name, address, and email address. So if you give me your name, address, and email address, you will have that smoke and sweetness, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices sent directly to you. Thank you, Nick Man, for playing, for everybody for playing our giveaway. We'll have more coming as our Talking Ball lives roll on. Let's see. Joe agrees Shedeur Sanders looked good. He could avoid sacks and run for first down. Dart could do everything on the field. Wilson was just throwing 1 and 2 yard passes. Mortal says we are going to be a problem this year. D-Kid says it annoys me people are associating Sanders' performance with the Giants. Well, D-Kid, I did so in my story write-up of how this game went today. But like I said, I think it can be brought up in a positive way. Here's the bottom line, D-Kid. There's people in the Giants front office, coaching staff, etc. Like, this is something they're watching very closely. I mean, this was a hotly debated internal topic. Who are we going to draft? Who likes who, right? Dart ends up being the guy. So, yes, for sure, D-Kid, it's not every snap Jaxson Dart takes isn't about Shedeur Sanders. You're absolutely right about that. But it's 100% a huge topic of conversation inside the Giants building and around it about did they pick the right guy because of how much they were in on the other guy before they switched and changed it up. So it's just the reality of what the context of it is. But you're absolutely right. It wouldn't be fair to Dart to discuss every move he makes about it. Frankly, D-Kit, I really haven't brought up Shedeur at all around Jaxson Dart's name entire training camp. It was definitely I thought, relevant this weekend, considering Shedeur Dart playing back-to-back like that. Shedeur looking good, looking strong. And also, obviously, the strongest leaks that came out about Shedeur prior to the draft were Giants leaks. So that's also not irrelevant. Hunter says the first 2 drives, defense looks stout in terms of getting pressure. Pretty sure most of the Bills starting line played. Yeah, there was pressure. Like I said, some good tackling, some that needs to be, cleaned up. GCN points out one thing that needs to be cleaned up. Pat, the bad for the Giants, 10 penalties and D-back coverage. Yeah, the reserves struggled. And yeah, the penalties continue to be an issue. Mysterious One says, let's go Giants. Lots to clean up, but not bad. We finally have decent depth on our team. Antonio asks about Hyatt. Yeah, we talked about that. They're being careful, but certainly, as I believe Hunter pointed out, not the guy that you want to see missing snaps right now for sure. All right, let's keep going here. Let's see. We got another super chat in the queue. Looks like it's Patrick Evans again. Patrick, thank you so much, man. Patrick says, Pat, where is the old fashioned? After every win, preseason and regular season, I need to see you toasting a Giants win. Oh, I like that idea, Patrick. Like every time the Giants get a victory, I have to, have a certain cocktail. Not a bad idea. Yeah, good point. I actually, I'll be honest. I had an Estate 98 iced coffee going, that I've almost finished here. So some water and some coffee right now, to be totally honest with you. I'm a big coffee drinker. That's a really good call, though. And I like my old fashions. Had a Woodford-based old fashioned yesterday. All right. Let's see. AJ says, I had a strong suspicion that this would look similar to Daniel Jones versus Eli, with Jones having zip on his arm while Eli had a noodle arm. Now Russ is in the same boat with the noodle arm Dable conundrum. Interesting point, AJ. And I think what you're pointing out, AJ, is very astute, which is, not only is there the fact of, okay, Russell Wilson is the vet and the other guy's not only a younger player, but he's a first round pick, like a significant investment and a guy that the head coach would love to get on the field. I brought this up in one of our recent chats. And again, I've gotten things wrong plenty, but one of the things I got so right was guessing the exact week that Daniel Jones was going to replace Eli Manning that year for, coming out of, Eli Manning starting that season, Pat Shurmur as the head coach, and Dave Gettleman and Pat Shurmur draft Daniel Jones in the top 10. And it was what Daniel looked like, how much more explosive and downfield he was going versus Eli, and the mobility factor. But with Daniel, it was also how much you knew the principals, especially the head coach and play caller Shurmur, wanted and needed better quarterback play. And so that's, again, like you said, AJ, it's not just what your eyes are telling you. It's always going to be more motivation and interest and intrigue and urgency to get the young guy on the field. It's just always going to be that way unless he shows he's not ready for it. Now, the interesting part about Dart is in practice, he has not had many practices where you've said, like, going into this game, I said it on our chat last, going into this game, it wasn't like, wow, Dart's really pushing Russell Wilson for a job. Like there was nothing like that happening. And Dart really hasn't taken first team snaps at all. But this game makes you think about what you're talking about, AJ, which is, wait, how much longer is this kid actually not going to play, right? And for a team that was 3-14 last season, that makes you think even more. Kyler echoes, Dart played better than Russ. Russ looked rusty. Sounds like 2012. If you know, you know. Let's see. Joe thinks the Giants should start Dart in the Jets practice and let Dart play the first half in the second game. Like it. Let's see. Yes, DBs did get confused and make some mental mistake penalties for sure. But overall, arrow pointing up for as the team goes. But yes, the backup defense struggled. Greg says, hey, Pat, you're the best from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, by way of Brooklyn, New York. Thank you, Greg. Hope you're enjoying the beach down there, man. Hope you're joined on YouTube on your phone, like with your feet in the water, man. Antonio wants to know if I expect Kevon Wallace to make the team as the fourth safety. Yeah, I do think they've shown him a lot on special teams, so that wouldn't surprise me. Let's see. Right. Always important to remember that they're the ones who gave Jones the big contract when they're throwing shade, for sure. Hooks notes that he sees some regulars in here: Barb, Joey B, D Kit, Joe Interstate, GCN, etc. Yep, tons. Antonio, Hunter. So glad to have so many people in the chat today. Kyler says Banks struggled still. Does this mean Flott will get the start next preseason game? What do you think about the continued struggles? And can we get this spamming bot out of here? Yeah, I've been staying in the queue, deleting them now. So annoying. I don't know why that's happening. I think, being a target's always a good thing. It means people either view you as a threat, or it means they think they're going to have a lot of eyeballs watching whatever they're spamming us with. Let's see. Yeah, Kyler, what today told me is that as much as Banks is the one on the field and Flott is not at the moment, I agree. What this told me was that I think they still have probably more confidence in Flott having a lower floor. And that's how it felt to me. Definitely, if Flott is healthy, they're going to try to give him meaningful snaps. Look, that definitely had the look to me of a team that wouldn't mind seeing Flott win the competition is the way that looked to me. But I think you're going to see both of these guys playing a good amount this season. It's going to happen. They're both going to have to be ready. And if Flott can get healthy, I think you need to give him these same kind of reps for sure. Super Unknown points out, this is a very good point. He says Dart looks good, but he has to slide when he runs. Please, this has to be drilled into him. Yeah, similar to Daniel Jones, right? Tough, but there's a time and place, and he's got to slide. Hooks echoes that, says Dart doesn't like to slide. Check the college and high school tape, but he will need to get some lessons from the Yankees. Even Joe Shane said about Dart I think it was right after they drafted him. He said, it concerned him at the Senior Bowl seeing him lower his head into a linebacker. So definitely. Mysterious One says, first timer, Pat, thanks for sharing your perspective and professional insight. You got it, Mysterious. Thanks for being here. Please subscribe. Please like while we are live. Hit those thumbs up. And Mysterious, yeah, so I'm the Daily News NFL columnist and Giants beat writer. This is my 10th season covering the team and the league. And normally I'm at the games physically. This is one where, just based on it's early in the season, family stuff, budget-wise, I want to get to, hopefully maybe miss one trip this season, but be at all the rest. And definitely want to make sure in those press boxes, coming out of the Giants locker room with as much information and analysis for you guys as I can in these post-game lives. So normally, if you're new to the channel, I will be at the stadium, going down into the locker room after the game, coming back out and coming up, and then going live with you all, not only with the same analysis we've had today of the game, talking to our sources, things like that, but also from a standpoint of, what did the players say at their lockers? What injury updates do we have? What did we see with our own eyes that you guys aren't privy to because you're not walking around that Giants locker room in Orchard Park, right? So that's what we're always going to be trying to bring to you guys, is bring it to you first and bring it to you as thoroughly as possible. Bring you inside the Giants locker room and inside the NFL with what we do here on Talking Ball live with Pat Leonard. And we couldn't do it without the support of our sponsors, MyBookie, Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, Hooks Rubs and Spices, and Sal Loretta for Men. Sadu is excited. He's pumped up. Hooks points out, I saw one of Carter's rushes and was shocked how quickly he beat the center. If the Bills weren't running a quick pass or slant, he would have blown up Trubisky. Yeah, no, he's dangerous. Today, he might have beaten a guard, center, and tackle on different snaps. Danny Duds is grateful. Daniel Jones is not here. Patrick loves the quarterback room. Let's see. Mysterious echoes, Turbo Miller is impressive. I think Singletary gets cut. I don't see him staying on. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Definitely Turbo more explosive. Singletary with more experience. So wait and see there. Let's see. Let's look at Singletary's cap hit on that. It definitely seemed like Singletary was one of several players on both teams that was having trouble staying on his feet today, was slipping a lot. I don't know what that was about. I heard Papa and Banks mention it on the broadcast too. So listen, if you cut Singletary right now, you're taking a $4.7 million dead cap hit, and you're only getting $1.5 million back in cap savings. So, the contract that they gave him, you could cut him, but you're paying him almost the same amount. You're not saving much money, and you're eating all the money that you would be spending on a rostered player anyway, with him not on the team anymore. I mean, I'm not saying that I love his game right now either, but that the finances make that a little weird. If it were the other way around, then the scenario that you just broached would feel more realistic, if not likely. I'm not saying it wouldn't happen. I mean, you still want it to be a meritocracy, just something to remember. Let's see. All right. Super Unknown says, I don't know if the Giants, cannot make any quarterback remarks without it seeming like an allusion to Daniel Jones, nor can we make a running back remark without it appearing as a comparison to Saquon. I don't know if they can all be slights. No, you're right, Super Unknown, and not everything's about that, but I'm just saying that one about the quarterbacks is a Daniel Jones allusion. Steve says something that's very true. Neil needs to be on the field. Yeah, no, again, like you can't have position battles on a team where the guys you can't have position battles where the guys on the team who are supposed to be in the position battles are this hurt, right? Don't worry about the bots, guys. I'm deleting them, so it's not preventing me from seeing your comments or your questions or your chats. I will say, though, that we're busy on the chat, and the chat is very deep. So if you want a comment or a question answered, the super chat or super sticker is the best way to do it. Not twisting your arm, but I'm just saying, if we're not going to be live forever. So if you feel like you're deep in the queue and I haven't gotten to what you're saying, otherwise I'm just going to go in order to try to be fair. Patrick Evans checks in again. Patrick, you're the best. MVP status today from you. Patrick says, I know it's a small sample size, Pat, but after watching Dart, how many games do you give Wilson, and has your win total changed for the Giants? Win total hasn't changed yet for me. If you know what he's asking about, I predicted them to win 3 games this season. And I think that what I would like to see still is, I've said this the whole way throughout camp, cautious optimism is what the Giants seem to have. It's what I feel at times out there, but the offense has not really cooked, has not given you a sign that, oh, wow, look at how different this is, right? And now I will say this, not giving up any sacks, Kafka's play calling, and Dart being the gamer that he was today, that's all very encouraging. And it's very encouraging, especially because there were so many weapons on this team that were not in this, that were not a part of the game plan, that were, that are going to be a huge part of what they do, like starting with Neighbors, Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas. Like those are all guys, I think what I would say, Patrick, to the question about my win total, if you could tell me, Patrick, that Andrew Thomas, Dexter Lawrence, and Malik Neighbors were all going to play at least 14 games at a high level of, what you consider that for them this season. If you told me that, then I would change my expectation and, for wins. I guess I would go along with and fair quarterback play. I would put that all together. Those 3 guys healthy and solid to slightly above average quarterback play, then yeah, I would totally change that. No doubt about it. But I think the health issue needs to be resolved. But listen, how can you not be excited about Jaxson Dart after this one? You have to be. All right. Let's check it out. What else do we got here? Trying to stay in the queue in order. Patrick, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Colvin doesn't think Hudson will be playing. He'll just make the team. Well, yeah, no, the design is for him to be the swing tackle with Thomas and Illuminor in. Just a question right now of when Thomas is going to ramp up. All right, let's see. Yeah, Hooks points out. Let's see some more from Turbo. That's something to consider, but keep watching. Let's see. D-Kit reiterates Daniel Jones was a major hindrance to the Giants. Pat, his departure is the single biggest upgrade to the team. That's what they're hanging their hat on, D-Kit. So if they're right about that, then that'll go a long way. Hunter says, I'm fine with guys like Dex not playing. He's a pro's pro. Same with Andrew Thomas. I'd rather have them no reps and be healthy week 1 than risk it. Yeah, still monitoring Dexter Lawrence, who clearly is not in, I think is still working himself into game shape, but obviously it's not week 1 yet. So just got to get him there. Turbo Miller was awesome. No doubt about it. Dable is supposed to make quarterbacks better. No doubt about that. Let's see. Jameis played decent, I think. Jameis is Jameis. He had the one interception that got called back due to the offsides and then delivered that touchdown and 2-point. Jake says Dart's pocket awareness was most impressive thing we saw today. That was something he showed in college too. Definitely something he showed in college. Let's see. One person saying DeVito will be traded. Another saying DeVito has no trade value. Achilles says it's not just Dart versus Sanders. It's Carter and Dart versus Sanders, who was passed on by 31 other teams. Yes, Achilles, in some ways it is. In other ways, as far as selecting your future franchise quarterback, right? It's Shador versus Dart, right? Let's see. GCN points out that at NFL Network, they were impressed with Dart. The Browns said they might keep 4 quarterbacks. Let's see. Yeah, Shador looked good with the Browns. He was still solid. Lewis reiterates, no market for Tommy DeVito. Silly talk from the Giants homers. They'd love to get a 7th for him. Kyler thinks you get more trading Russ. And if Winston had a 2-year deal anyways, why not deal Russ? He didn't even play well his first and only drive. Well, the only thing about that is that Russell Wilson is the North Star for this team. He's their leader. He's the guy they're getting behind as like the man whose message they're following and echoing. And he's the unchallenged first team quarterback with all the other first team players in the first team offense. I'm just telling you guys right now, even though Kyler, I hear what you're saying, but this is Russell Wilson. Like Russell Wilson's their guy when it comes to the veterans. If a trade happens, it would be Jameis. Hook says new quick beef ribs smoked recipe video dropped today. Wow. All right. So at Hook's Rub, yeah, YouTube, check him out on social. Quick. It's a beef ribs smoked recipe video dropped today. Use my code on hooksrub.com, talking ball. All right. Let's see. All right, I'm going to try to go through the queue and hit things that haven't been addressed yet to try to make sure I get to everything constructive. Let's see. I noticed some people kind of bickering in the chat at one point. Guys, please play nice. We want this to be constructive and a good place for people to have constructive discourse. You don't have to agree on everything. Let's just be nice. Let's see. Let's see. Jim agrees, says, Kyler, based on one game, I'm with you. Russ can't see over either line, O or D line. Hunter says, if you have a chance at return of assets for Jameis, you have to pull it. Barb wants to know who I think they would trade, Jameis or DeVito. Well, I agree with the chat, which is that it would have to be Jameis because DeVito would not bring you anything. Like the idea that they would get something significant for an Evan Neal, for a Tommy DeVito, things like that. Like I think that would be a hope-based strategy. If you could get something meaningful for those players, that would be great. But I think you would only get something, if anything, significant for a Jameis versus a DeVito when it came to a trade. Len says Gunnar Olszewski looked good today. He played well before he was hurt last season. You think he will be a part of the 53? If I recall, he returned a punt return for a touchdown after he was picked up by the Giants. Yeah, he was kind of put on ice by this regime at one point, but also has a proven track record in the league. He's tough. He makes plays. He's the kind of character player that you want. So, yeah, no, that's an interesting dynamic there because Smith-Marset has a lot of juice to him as a returner, and he was exciting for them last year. Definitely one of the few bright spots on a 3-14 team, to be honest with you. But Smith-Marset hasn't had like a great camp, and you do earn some trust with what you do in games that count, and he should and did. But those guys, Montreal Washington, Gunnar Olszewski, like definitely pushing there, and competition's good at this time. Braden says, hey, Pat, hope you've been doing well. To me, despite the narrative, DeVito is the guy to go to. I know they highlighted that Godfather offer needed for Winston. Huge emphasis on locker room guys this year. Yeah, like Winston's good for the room, right? Bangkok baseball, Bangkok, I know it seems like you guys are getting into it down there, so chill. But he says, why did we see so little of Abdul Carter? Bowen needs to step up his game. No, you saw a little of Abdul Carter because he's going to be so critical to them, and they don't want to get him injured in the preseason. He played as a surefire in the rotation starter. Like he was part of the top 12, right? That's kind of what it is. It's more of like a starting 12 on defense than a starting 11. I'm glad we got to this comment. Peter points out something I wanted to talk about. Thomas Fedone looked like an NFL tight end. Give him number 89. So Thomas Fedone, the second, right? Is that what it is? No, it's got to be junior, right? No, it's the second. Thomas Fedone, the second. So he had 3 catches for, 22 yards. 2 of his catches, plus he had the 2-point conversion. The 2-point conversion catch from Jameis, he snagged that ball way out of the air, tight coverage. And DeVito had a throw that was high over his head where he reached up high, grabbed it, showed great hands. It was like great hands, great range, long wingspan, like all things that, listen, is he tightly covered on some of these plays, whatever. The bottom line is the guy was catching the ball. Like, he's a late round pick. It's a flyer. He's had some health issues in the past, that kind of thing. But hey, if this guy can step onto the field for you and on 3rd and 1 at the goal line, use his size and wingspan to catch the ball for 6 points. I mean, that's something the Giants haven't had. Like, yes, they like Theo Johnson. Yes, you have Daniel Bellinger, Chris Manhertz. But if he can win like he did, now this was against backups today, of course. Again, remember those things. And can he block well enough to be on the field enough? Can you not give away the play call when he's on the field? Those types of things that you're always thinking about, right? It's not just about the one play. Defenses are going to scheme for you. They're going to know what you're looking for. So you have to remember all of that. But the bottom line is this with Fedone. That was exciting. Like I'm glad, Peter, thank you so much for mentioning that, because Thomas Fedone the second, like that was exciting to see. That was exciting to see. All right. Okay, let's see. Looks like we got another super chat in the queue. MJ, what's up, MJ? MJ says, in fairness, isn't the ongoing comparison Abdul Carter and Dart versus Shedeur? I mean, Shedeur would have to be pretty amazing to beat that. Well, I don't. So wait, why could they not have taken Shedeur Sanders in the late first round? This is not something I saw coming, a debate about this. Couldn't they have just taken Abdul Carter 3 and traded up for Shedeur late first? Like, to me, they were judging which quarterback to draft and where and value, right? So at an early part in this, you're thinking, should we draft Shedeur number 3? Should we draft Jaxson Dart? Where do we draft him? Is it high? Do we see him as more of a late first? Do we look at Abdul Carter and then who do we take after that? Of course, they ended up taking the best player available and deciding that a quarterback wasn't worth that spot, but deciding they wanted to go and get Dart. But it could have easily been Shedeur in that spot that they went and got in the back half of the first. So I'm not sure I agree with seeing it that way. The 2 versus the 1, I don't really follow that, but um, listen, if I've said this from the beginning, if there is anything to hang your hat on when it comes to excitement for Giants fans, it is Jaxson Dart and Abdul Carter. And it starts with Abdul Carter, how explosive he has looked, but it ends with, or it continues now with Dart showing up in a really, really impressive way. Let's see. All right. Nick Man says he shot the message over to me on Instagram. So we'll get that over to Jared and Hooks, Rubs, and Spices and go from there. Guys, if you have any more comments or questions that you really want answered, or that you need answered, or that I didn't get to, please dump them in the chat now with a super chat or super sticker. We've been flooded by questions today. It's been a great chat. I want to remind you as you weigh in down the home stretch here that we are brought to you by MyBookie Sportsbook, Hooks, Rubs, and Spices, Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, and also Estate 98 Coffee and Sal Loretta for Men in Midland Park, New Jersey. Some reminders of how you can support our sponsors here. Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink. You're going to go to boomchaga.com to start feeling the difference and use the code TalkinBall25. Bookmark boomchaga.com. Okay. It's great gives you a nice shot at the start of the day of energy. It's also good for lowering cholesterol and removing inflammation and improving immune and heart health with its beta glucans and antioxidants. Also have the cold teas now for these hot summer months. So go to Boom Chaga, use the Talking Ball 25 code, start feeling the difference today. MyBookie, whether it's UFC, WWE, NFL, MLB, and anything in between, the casino, and all of their unique games from the money bag to partner picks and daily boosts. Go to mybookie.ag, use the code Leonard, Leonard. I have links to all of these sponsors in my profile on YouTube and elsewhere, by the way, and you'll get a welcome bonus. The offer attached to using the code is actually a 50% deposit bonus, redeemable all the way up to $1,000 in bonus funds. Can't beat that. Get started today at MyBookie with that code Leonard. And Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. Talkin' Ball is the code there. Hooksrub.com. Talkin' Ball. Support a fellow Giants fan, Jared, originally from Houston, with that Texas barbecue flavor. Hooks, Rubs, and Spices. We smoke meat. And Sal Loretta for Men, Midland Park, New Jersey. Tell them Pat sent you. Go there for the best in luxury menswear and tailoring. That's where you're going to see me in my Giants arrivals. Come Giants, Jets, Giants, Patriots in the preseason, and going from there. FYI, some of my colleagues on the beat that are in Buffalo, what I'm hearing is that it sounds like Jaxson Dart and Brian Daboll are talking a lot about how it had been said that Dart holds the ball too much. And that was a question that I asked Brian Daboll in a press conference. So sounds like the Giants are adeptly trying to turn their future franchise quarterback against me. After I asked a completely fair question about something that we've seen in a lot of practices so far. So nice to hear the rivalry still going. We haven't even hit the regular season yet. All right, Patrick's going to close us out here. He says, hey, I think, Pat, that during the draft process, Shedeur was not taking it seriously enough for me. Dart was more professional than him during the process. Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I think they landed on the guy that they discovered in their minds was the guy, the best, the one that they felt was best for them. They're excited about it, and I'm excited about it. I like Jaxson a lot. I've talked to a lot of people who tell me he's going to be the man. He's going to be a gamer. He's going to, be somebody that everyone underestimates, and he's going to exceed expectations, and he's going to prove people wrong if they don't believe in him. And so, exciting start for Jaxson Dart. Exciting start here. Really excited about it. Turbo needs to be on the 53-man roster. That is one of the big cries from the Talking Ball post-game live chat here on YouTube. PL on NFL is the handle. Subscribe, rate, and review. Hit the like buttons before we're done. But we agree. Turbo Miller, man, 102 yards from scrimmage, leads the team. Barb says, thanks, Pat. Thank you, Barb. Thank you, everybody who was here for nearly an hour and a half talking Giants and talking ball after a 34-25 victory preseason opener against the Bills in Orchard Park. The headline, like I said, the boom impact, Jaxson Dart, the rookie first-round pick. 7-play, 80-yard drive capped by a 28-yard touchdown pass to little Jordan Humphrey. Dart, 12 of 19, 154 yards, and a touchdown with 24 yards rushing. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for checking in. Exciting to start the preseason with a win. We'll be back live on Monday here on the YouTube channel, Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, to preview Giants-Jets. Giants-Jets. We're going to have joint practices Tuesday and Wednesday. Tuesday will be Florham Park. Wednesday will be East Rutherford. We might, maybe I'll do daily lives, given what's going on and how much there is to talk about right now. But, look, there's going to a lot more content coming on the channel as the season ramps up to the games that count. Yes, the touchdown was beautiful. Candyman checks in with a super chat before we get out of here. Says, Banks and Papa think if Giants put DeVito on the practice squad, he'll be picked up. Thoughts? I think that they were teasing that. I think the Giants want to get something out of a quarterback on their roster rather than having them taken for nothing or cutting them and having them removed, and not getting any capital for that player. So I think that was a Giants friendly broadcast trying to do the Giants a favor there. Candyman, I personally don't agree with that sentiment that he would be plucked off their practice squad. I mean, maybe, I'm sure in that event, his agent might work. His agent's working hard for him, but maybe his agent would work the phones and make it happen. But I think definitely that's a more hope-based thing. Like, I think this is discourse about a narrative where the Giants are probably trying to plant a seed that they want some phone calls coming their way in a room with 4 quarterbacks where they don't intend to keep 4. That's what I think. But if he was still on the roster, Candyman, I do think he would be put on their practice squad and he would start there, barring a Jameis trade, of course. But Jameis is the player to watch to me. Jameis is the player to watch because that's the player you're getting something for if you trade him. Thank you so much for being here, guys. This has been Talking Ball Postgame Live with Pat Leonard. See you Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern to preview Jets-Giants joint practices. Take care.